The first time Kale Vera touched me, the world went quiet. It was not the kind of quiet that came after a storm. It was the kind that came before a euro, when the air held its breath and every living thing waited for the lightning to choose its ground. I was 22, an unmated Omega of House Solan, and I had spent the entire winter solstice ball trying not to be noticed. That was my specialty. Where other Omegas preened and glittered and angled for an alpha's claim, I stayed near the pillar with the cracked marble, a glass of watered wine in my hand, and prayed the music would end before anyone remembered my name. My name was Elias Solan, second son, soft-spoken, academically gifted, socially forgettable. My pheromones were mild as rainwater euro, or so the healers had always said. Alphas rarely looked twice. Until Kale. He was the heir of House Vera, the northern alpha line that had held the eastern march for 3 centuries. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of winter iron and a scent like smoke and pine and something sharper underneath, like steel left too long in the cold. The entire ballroom tilted toward him when he entered. Omegas flushed. Betas straightened. Alphas watched him with the wary respect reserved for wolves who had already won their fights. I did not expect him to look at me. I especially did not expect him to cross the room for me. "You're hiding," he said, voice low enough that only I could hear it. Up close, his scent was a physical weight. My knees nearly folded. "I'm observing," I corrected, because my mouth had always been braver than the rest of me. "There's a difference." His mouth curved a euro, not quite a smile. "And what have you observed, Elias Solan?" He knew my name. The knowledge slid under my skin like a blade made of heat. "That you don't dance," I said. "That you've refused 3 Omegas tonight without looking at them. That your second is watching the west doors like he expects an assassin. And that you smell like a forest fire someone is trying very hard to put out." For a moment, something raw flickered behind the iron of his eyes. Then he laughed euro soft, startled, private. "Come with me." I should have said no. I should have remembered my father's warnings, my brother's scorn, the 100 rules that governed unmated Omegas of minor houses when alphas of major ones decided to be interested. I went with him anyway. He led me through a side corridor, past the kitchens, into a small courtyard garden the servants used for hanging herbs. Snow dusted the stone benches. The moon was a thin white coin. Kale turned to me there, and the careful mask he wore for the court cracked open like ice under a boot. "Your scent," he said, almost accusing. "It's been following me all night. I thought someone had spilled perfume. Then I realized it was you." "Rain and ink and euro," he stopped. "Step closer. Do you know what you smell like to me, Elias?" I shook my head. My pulse was a wild animal in my throat. "Like home," he said. "Like the place I didn't know I was looking for." The bond snapped into place between us like a door slamming shut euro. No, like a door opening, all at once, onto a room filled with light. My knees did fold then. Kale caught me, and when his mouth found mine, the world did not so much go quiet as it vanished, replaced by the heat of him, the press of his hands, the low sound he made when I opened for him. We did not return to the ball. We found a guest wing that House Solan kept for visiting dignitaries. Kale locked the door. I remember the weight of him above me, the careful way he esquid euro. "Are you sure, Elias? Tell me you're sure euro," and the way my voice broke when I said yes. I remember the first sharp push of his knot, the way pleasure and pain braided together until I could not tell them apart. I remember him burying his face in my throat and whispering my name like a vow. I remember the bond settling, golden and irrevocable, in the space behind my ribs. "Mine," his scent said. "Yours," mine answered. We fell asleep tangled together. When I woke before dawn, Kale was still there, one arm heavy across my waist, his breathing deep and even. For a single, perfect hour, I believed the stories. I believed that bonds were destiny, that alphas who found their Omegas would fight the world to keep them, that I, soft and forgettable Elias Solan, had been chosen by the most powerful young alpha in the Eastern March. I was a fool, but I did not know it yet. Kale was gone when I woke the second time. There was a note on the pillow, written in a sharp, decisive hand. Council business. I will send for you. €, K*. I waited 3 days, then a week, then a month. No letter came, no messenger, no public acknowledgement of our bond. When I tried to reach him through the formal Chanel euro, Omegas of minor houses were not permitted to write alphas of major ones without a sponsor euro. My messages were returned unopened, stamped with the Vera seal and a single word, inappropriate. My father found out on the 32nd day, when the bond mark on my throat refused to fade and my scent began to change in ways even I could not hide. He struck me once, hard enough to split my lip, and then he locked me in my rooms for a week while he managed the situation. The situation, as he explained it through the door, was this. Heir Vera had made no claim. Without a claim, a bond was only a scandal. House Solène could not afford a scandal. I would remain quiet. I would remain hidden. And if the alpha never came, I would be sent to the southern convent of unmated omegas, where bonds were chemically suppressed and inconvenient omegas were taught to forget they had ever wanted anything. I did not tell my father about the other thing. The other thing was this. 2 weeks after the solstice, I had woken with a metallic taste in my mouth and a nausea that no amount of tea could settle. The private healer I bribed with the last of my mother's jewelry confirmed it in a whisper, her eyes wide with something between pity and terror. I was carrying an alpha's heir, Heir's heir. In our world, a pregnancy that resulted from a true bond was secretio, protected by law older than the council itself. But a pregnancy without a claim? That was a weapon. Alphas of Heir's standing had been known to deny such children, to force suppressants, to erase the omega entirely rather than accept a bond they had not publicly chosen. I pressed my hand to my still flat stomach in the dark of my rooms and made a promise to the life growing there. Asterisk, I will keep you safe, even from him, especially from him, if I must, asterisk. The summons to the council arrived in the 3rd month. It was not addressed to me. It was addressed to House Solène, demanding the presence of the Omega Elias to answer questions regarding an unauthorized bond mark and the potential disruption of inter-house alliances. My father went white when he read it. My brother laughed, cruel and soft. Looks like your alpha wants an audience, he said, or a public execution. Hard to tell with Veras. I dressed in the pale gray of an unmated omega, though the bond mark burned under the high collar of my tunic. I braided my hair simply. I did not eat. The childiro, our childiro, fluttered once, low in my belly, as if it too could sense the storm coming. The council hall of the capital was a cathedral of white stone and old power. 12 seats for the 12 great houses. A gallery for lesser nobility. A floor of polished black marble that reflected the faces of the accused like still water. I was not supposed to be the accused. I was. Heir stood at the center of the floor when I was brought in. He looked exactly as he had the night of the solsticio, and nothing like it. The same iron eyes. The same smoke and pine scent. But the heat that had poured off him in the garden was gone, sealed behind a wall of ice, so complete I almost doubted the bond still existed. Almost. It did exist. I could feel it, a golden thread stretched taut between us, vibrating with every step I took toward him. He felt it too. I saw it in the minute tightening of his jaw, the way his hands curled once at his sides before he forced them still. Elias Solène, the high speaker, intoned. You stand before the council on the matter of an unregistered bond with Alpha Heir of House Vera. How do you answer? My voice, when it came, was steadier than I expected. The bond is real. It was mutual. It was consummated. A murmur ran through the gallery. My father's face was stone. Heir did not look at me. Alpha Vera, the high speaker, said, Do you confirm this bond? The silence that followed lasted 4 heartbeats. I counted them. On the 5th, Heir spoke. No. The word landed like a blade between my ribs. I do not confirm it. Heir continued, his voice carrying cleanly through the hall. Whatever occurred at the solstice was a mistake, a lapse in judgment. The Omega's mark is residual and will fade with proper suppressants. I make no claim. I accept no bond. House Vera recognizes no connection to House Solène or to Elias Solène. He still would not look at me. And the other matter, one of the southern alphas asked carefully. Rumors, I realized. Someone had talked. The healer, perhaps, or a servant. There are whispers of a pregnancy. Heir's jaw tightened again. For a fraction of a second, something cracked in the ice shock, or fury, or some thing I could not name. Then it sealed over. If the Omega is with child, Heir said, each word precise as a knife cut, it is not mine. I took precautions. Any claim to the contrary is a fabrication designed to entrap House Vera into an alliance we neither need nor desire. The gallery erupted. My father made a sound like a dying animal. I stood very still in the center of the black marble floor and felt the golden thread between us scream. He was lying. He had to be lying. Alphas could not fake the absence of a Bondi Euro, not completely. The Council's own scent readers would confirm residual bonding pheromones if they tested us. But Kale was the heir of Vera. He had allies on the Council. He had the kind of power that made truth optional. And I was a soft omega of a minor house with a split lip and a secret I had not yet spoken aloud. The high speaker raised a hand for silence. Omega Solen, do you wish to contest Alpha Vera's statement? Every eye in the hall turned to me. This was the moment. I could speak. I could place my hand on my stomach and say he is lying. I am carrying his heir. Test me. Test the child. The blood will not lie. The law would protect me, Thena Euro, or it would destroy me more thoroughly than silence ever could. Kale's denial had already painted me as a schemer. A pregnancy claim now would only make me a desperate one. I thought of the life inside me, of the convent, of my father's fist, of Kale's mouth on my throat, whispering mine. I lifted my chin. No, I said. I do not contest it. Kale's head turned then. Finally, his eyes met mine across the black marble, and for one unguarded second I saw Euro the fracture, the thing he was burying under all that ice. Then he looked away, and the high speaker was speaking again, dissolving the alleged bond, ordering suppressants, recommending that House Solen manage its omega appropriately. I was dismissed. I walked out of the council hall with my spine straight and my hands steady and the taste of copper in my mouth where I had bitten through the inside of my cheek. Behind me, I heard Kale's second say something low and approving. I did not look back. In the carriage home, my father did not speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was almost gentle. The convent, he said, at the end of the week, before you begin to show. I nodded. I did not tell him I had no intention of going. I left on the fourth night. I took 3 things: a change of clothes, the small pouch of coin I had hidden over years of careful saving, and the silver pendant my mother had left me before she did Euro, a moon and thorn design that marked me, to those who knew how to look, as a Solen of the old blood. I left a note for my father that said only, *, do not look for me. I am no longer your problem, *. The capital's lower districts did not care about house names. They cared about coin and silence. I found a room above a binder's shop, paid 2 months in advance, and gave my name as Eli when the landlady asked. I wore scent blockers strong enough to make my eyes water. I took the suppressants the council had ordered, not the bond suppressants, which I flushed into the gutter, but the ones that muted omega heat cycles and would, the healer had whispered, complicate a pregnancy if you are not careful. I was careful. I was also starving, nauseated, and more alone than I had ever been in my life. The first weeks in the lower districts were a study in small humiliations. I learned which bakers sold yesterday's loaves for half price at dusk. I learned that the public fountain near the Tanner's Row was safe to drink from if you boiled the water twice. I learned that an omega alone, even one wearing enough scent blocker to choke a wolf, still drew the wrong kind of attention after dark Euro, so I stopped going out after dark. I sewed by candlelight instead, pricking my fingers until the thread was dotted with tiny brown stains I could not quite wash out. The child grew. By the 5th month, I could no longer hide the curve of my belly under loose tunics. The landlady, a sharp-eyed beta named Mara, took one look at me in the stairwell and said, "You're not running from a debt, are you, Eli?" "No," I said. "From an alpha, then." I said nothing. Mara nodded as if I had confirmed it. "There's work in the back of the shop, if you can sit and sew. Binding pages. Pays poorly. Keeps you off the street." I took the work. The shop smelled of glue and old paper and the faint sweetness of the beeswax Mara used to polish finished covers. I learned to stitch signatures, to press spines, to trim pages with a blade that had to be sharpened every 3rd day. My hands, which had once turned the pages of House Solen's library with careful reverence, grew calloused and ink-stained. I was proud of them in a way I had never been proud of anything that belonged only to me. I sewed until my fingers cramped. I ate what I could keep down Euro, mostly broth. Occasionally an egg Mara slipped onto my plate without comment. At night, In the narrow bed under the eaves, I pressed my palms to my belly and talked to the child in a whisper. Your father is a coward, I told it. Or a monster. Or both. But you are not. You are mine. And I am going to give you a life that does not depend on anyone's claim. The child kicked, as if in agreement. Sometimes I sang old Solène cradle songs my mother had hummed, half remembered, the words wrong in places. The child seemed to like the sound of my voice. Or perhaps it simply liked not being alone. I understood the feeling. I did not let myself think about Kale. Not during the day. At night, the bond suppressed, starved, but never fully broken ached like a bruise that would not heal. Sometimes I dreamed of smoke and pine. Sometimes I woke with his name in my mouth and had to bite my pillow until the urge to scream passed. Once, in the 6th month, I dreamed of his hands on my face and woke crying so hard Mara knocked on the door to ask if I needed a healer. I told her it was the pregnancy. She did not believe me. She brought me tea anyway. In the 7th month, the dreams changed. I began to dream of a forest, of a cabin with a green door, of Kale's voice, raw and wrecked, saying, "Where are you? Where did you go? Elias, please a euro." And under that, quieter, a second voice that might have been my own answering. I'm here. I'm still here. Find me. I told myself they were only dreams. I was wrong. Ael Vera found me on a rain-soaked evening in the 8th month. I was closing the binder's shop for Mara, who had gone to visit her sister in the next district. The rain was the kind that turned the streets to rivers and the air to gray soup. I had just turned the key in the lock when a shadow detached itself from the alley opposite and stepped into the lamplight. I knew him before I saw his face. The bond roared. 8 months of silence, of suppressants, of carefully constructed waltz all of it collapsed in a single heartbeat. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the doorframe, and Kale was there, suddenly, impossibly, his hands on my arms, his scent flooding the narrow street like a wildfire given permission to burn. Elias. His voice was ruined. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the iron control of the council floor. Not the careful air. Just a man who looked like he had not slept in weeks. Rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead. Eyes fever-bright and desperate. The second thing I noticed was that he was looking at my belly. The third was that he was crying. I had never seen Kale Vera cry. I had not known he could. His hands shook where they held me. You are a gods, Elias. You are a Pregnant, I said flatly. Yes, as the whispers said. As you denied. He flinched as if I had struck him. I didn't know. Elias, I swear on my blood, I didn't know. When they asked in the council, I thought it was a rumor your father had planted to force the claim. I thought if I denied everything, they would leave you alone. I thought You thought wrong. I pulled free of his hands. The rain was cold on my face. Or perhaps those were tears. I could not tell. You stood in front of the 12 great houses and called me a liar and a schemer and said our child was not yours. Do you have any idea what that did? Yes. The word was a broken thing. I know exactly what it did. I've known for 2 months. I've been tearing the capital apart looking for you. Why? The question tore out of me, raw. Why now? Why not before? Why not the morning after, when I woke up alone with a note that said nothing? Why not when I wrote to you, and every letter came back unopened? Why not when my father locked me in a room and planned to send me to a convent to erase what we made? Kale's face crumpled. He looked, in that moment, younger than I had ever seen him, stripped of the heir's armor. Just a man standing in the rain with his mistakes hanging around his neck like a noose. Because I was a coward, he said. Because my father threatened to disinherit me if I claimed a Solène Omega. Because the Eastern March was on the edge of a border war and House Vera needed an alliance with the Southern Pax, and that alliance required me to be unmated. Because I told myself the bond would fade, that you would forget, that I could be the alpha my house needed if I just his voice cracked. If I just let you go. And the council? My father wrote the script. I read it. Kale's hands clenched at his sides. I told myself it was the only way to protect you from becoming a political weapon. If I claimed you, the Southern Pax would have used you as leverage. If I denied you, you would be free. Safe. I didn't know about the child. Elias, I didn't know. I laughed. It was not a kind sound. And now that you do? What, Kale? You found me. You've seen the proof. Are you going to stand in another hall and deny it again? Or are you going to take what you want now that it's convenient? I am going to beg, he said. The rain fell between us. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. The bond thrummed, golden and furious and alive, and I hated how much I still wanted to step into his arms. I am going to beg you to let me explain. Kale continued, each word careful, as if he were placing stones across a river. To let me make this right. Not because of the chilled euro, though I will spend the rest of my life earning the right to be their father euro, but because the bond never faded. Not for a single day. I have felt you every hour since the solstice. Your fear, your grief, your euro, he swallowed. Your love, even when you tried to bury it. And I have hated myself with a thoroughness that would impress even you. I wrapped my arms around my belly. The child kicked hard, as if it could hear its father's voice and had opinions about it. You don't get to decide that you've suffered enough, I said quietly. You don't get to show up in the rain and cry and expect me to open the door. I built a life, Kale. A small one, a hard one, but it is mine. And this child is mine. You rejected us in front of the world. The world does not get a second performance. Kale closed his eyes. When he opened them, the iron was gone. There was only the man from the garden, the one who had said you smell like home. Then let me earn a private one, he said. Not for the world. For you. For them. He audied at my belly. Give me a chance to be the alpha I should have been from the beginning. If at the end of it you still want me gone, I will go. I will sign every document. I will never darken your door again. But please, Elias. Please. I should have said no. I had said no to myself 1,000 times in the dark. I had practiced the word until it was a stone in my mouth, ready to throw. Instead, I said, you have until the child is born. 3 weeks, if the healer is right. You may come to the shop during the day. You may bring food. You may not touch me without permission. You may not speak of the bond unless I speak of it first. And if you lie to me again euro about anything euro, I will disappear so completely that even the bond will not find me. Do you understand? Kale's shoulders sagged with something that looked like relief and terror braided together. I understand. Good. I unlocked the door. Paused. Did not invite him in. The rain is cold, Alpha Vera. Go home before you freeze. Come back tomorrow if you still mean any of it. I closed the door on his face. Through the wood, I heard him say, so soft I almost missed it. I mean all of it. Every word. For the rest of my life. I sat on the floor of the shop with my back against the door and cried until I had nothing left. The child kicked the whole time, as if to say, asterisk I know. I know. But listen, asterisk. Kale came back the next day. And the day after that. And every day for 3 weeks. He brought €40 real food, not the thin broth and stale bread I had been living on. Roasted meats. Fresh bread. Fruit, so ripe it stained my fingers. He brought soft blankets. A midwife he trusted, who examined me with gentle hands and declared the child strong and the pregnancy healthy, if late. He brought books, because he remembered euro somehow, from that single night euro, that I loved histories of the old packs. He did not touch me. He did not speak of the bond, though I could feel it singing between us every time he entered the room, a golden wire pulled so tight it hummed. He talked, instead, about the truth. About his father, Alpha Commander Ren Vera, who had built the Eastern March into a fortress and expected his heir to be a weapon, not a man. About the Southern Alliance, which had collapsed 2 months after the council hearing when the Southern Pacts learned of Kale's instability and withdrew their offer. About the night Kale had finally broken row, standing in his father's study with a blade at his own throat, saying I will not be your heir if it costs me my soul euro, and the brutal, bloody fight that had followed, ending with Ren Vera stripped of his command by his own council of alphas and Kale elevated in his place. I should have done it sooner, Kale said one afternoon, sitting on the floor of the shop while I sewed binding thread with fingers that no longer shook. I should have chosen you the morning after the solstice. I will regret that choice until I die. Longer, if the gods are just. I did not forgive him, but I listened. On the 12th day, I allowed him to place his hand on my belly. The child kicked so hard Kale left a startled, wet sound euro, and then pressed his forehead to the curve of me and whispered something I could not hear. When he lifted his head, his eyes were red. They know me, he said, wonderstruck. How do they know me? The bond, I said, before I could stop myself. Even suppressed. Even starved. They've always known. Kale's hand trembled against me. May I euro, he stopped. Started again. When they are born. if you allow it. I would like to be there, not as the alpha of Vera, as their father, as yours, if you will have me. Only if. I looked at him for a long time. The rain had stopped days ago. Sunlight fell through the shop's front window in pale gold bars. Kale's scent was no longer a wildfire. It was a hearthy euro, smoke and pine, and the careful warmth of a man who had learned, at last, how to tend a flame without letting it consume everything it touched. We will see, I said. It was not forgiveness. It was a door, left slightly open. The child came early. I woke in the dark of the 20th night with a pain like a fist closing around my spine. Water soaked the sheets. I called for Mara, who took one look at me and sent her apprentice running for the midwifery euro, and for Kale, because I had written his name on a scrap of paper weeks ago, and said, if it happens, if I cannot speak, give him this. He arrived before the midwife. I will not pretend the birth was beautiful. It was blood and sweat, and a pain so complete it erased language. Kale held my hand through all of it. When I cursed him, he took it. When I sobbed that I hated him, he pressed his mouth to my temple and said, I know, I'm here, I'm not leaving. When the midwife told me to push, he braced my back and counted with me, his voice the only solid thing in a world made of breaking. Our son was born at dawn. He was small and red and furious, with a shock of dark hair and a cry that could have woken the dead. The midwife cleaned him, wrapped him, and placed him on my chest. The bond euro, the true bond, the one between parent and child euro, snapped into place with a gentleness that made the earlier one look like a lightning strike. Kale was crying again. He seemed to do that a lot, now. He's perfect, Kale whispered. Elias, he's perfect. He has your mouth. He has your temper. I managed, exhausted beyond measure. Listen to him. Kale laughed, wet and broken, and when I nodded euro, just once, a bare permission euro, he took our son into his arms with the careful terror of a man holding something he had not earned and could not bear to lose. Hello, he told the child. I'm your father. I've made a mess of things, but I am going to spend every day of the rest of my life trying to deserve you. And your papa, especially your papa. The child blinked up at him with eyes that would, I suspected, turn the color of winter iron. I slept. When I woke, Kale was still there, our son asleep against his chest, and the golden thread between us was no longer a scream. It was a song low, steady, unfinished. I did not plan to return to the council hall. Kale asked. He did not demand. He sat on the edge of my narrow bed in the room above the binder's Euro, our son, whom we had named Torin, asleep in a basket lined with the soft blankets Kale had brought Euro, and he laid out the truth like a map. My father still has allies, he said. They will challenge the succession. They will say I am unfit, that I abandoned my duty for an omega of no standing. The only way to silence them is to stand before the council and claim what I should have claimed 8 months ago. Publicly, irrevocably, with you beside me, if you will come, with Torin, if you will allow it. And if I will not, then I will stand alone. I will claim you in absentia. I will make the law protect you whether you want my name or not. And I will accept whatever judgment you pass on me after. He met my eyes. But I am asking, Elias, not as Alpha of Vera, as the man who loves you, who has always loved you, even when he was too much of a coward to say it. I looked at Torin, at the small fist curled against his cheek, at the life I had built from nothing, and the life Kale was offering to build beside it. One condition, I said. Anything. You tell them everything. Not the polished version, not the Heir's version. The truth. That you rejected us. That I ran. That you found me. That I am not standing beside you because I forgot. I am standing beside you because I chose to forgive you euro. And forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. Kale's throat worked. Yes, all of it. And if they refuse the claim, then I renounce the house. I take you and Torin and we leave. There are lands beyond the march. There are lives that do not require a council's blessing. He reached out, slowly, and when I did not pull away, he took my hand. I have already chosen you, Elias. The council is only a formality. You are the vow. I squeezed his fingers once. Then we go, I said. The council hall looked smaller the second time. Or perhaps I was larger euro, not in body, though the birth had left me softer, but in the space I occupied inside my own skin. I wore not the pale gray of an unmated omega, but the deep forest green of House Vera, a cloak Kale had commissioned in secret, lined with soft wool. the moon and thorn of Solin embroidered in silver thread at the hem. A joining of houses. A refusal to erase either. Torin slept against my chest in a sling. Kale walked beside me, not ahead. When we entered the hall, the gallery's murmur was a living thing. The high speaker looked older, or perhaps simply surprised. Alpha Vera, he said. You requested an emergency session. On what grounds? Kale stepped forward. His voice, when it came, carried to every corner of the white stone hall. On the grounds of a true bond, a legitimate heir, and a public reckoning long overdue. He did not look at his father's empty seat. Ren Vera had not been invited. Kale had made sure of it. 8 months ago, Kale said, I stood in this hall and rejected a bond that was real, mutual, and consummated. I did so under pressure from my house, and out of a cowardice I will not excuse. I denied the Omega Elias Solin. I denied the possibility of a child. I was wrong on every count. The gallery had gone silent. Even the Southern Alphas leaned forward. Elias Solin is my bonded Omega. Torin Solin Vera is my son and heir. I claim them both, publicly and without reservation, under the oldest laws of the Pax. And I apologize Euro to this council, to House Solin, and above all to Ilias Euro for the harm my denial caused. He turned to me then. In front of the 12 great houses and the watching gallery, Kale Ver Euro Alpha of the Eastern Mark Euro went to one knee on the black marble floor. I rejected our bond in front of this council, he said, loud enough for every ear. I did not know you were carrying my heir. That is not an excuse. It is a confession. I am asking this council to register the bond. I am asking Elias to accept the claim he has every right to refuse. And I am asking the record to show that the Alpha who knelt was not the heir who rejected a Euro, but the man who finally learned the difference. I looked down at him, at the iron eyes that were no longer iron, at the hand he held out, palm up, waiting. The high speaker cleared his throat. Omega Solin, the claim has been made. Do you accept? I thought of the garden in the snow, of the note on the pillow, of the council floor and the word no, of the rain and the shop and the 3 weeks of food and books and careful, aching honesty, of Torin's first cry, of the song the bond had become. I took Kale's hand. I accept, I said, not because he is Alpha of Vera, because he is the man who came back, because he told the truth when it cost him, because our son deserves a father who will kneel before he commands, and because my voice caught. I let it, because I still smell home on him, and I am tired of running from it. The high speaker struck the staff of office once against the stone. The bond is registered. The heir is recognized. House Vera and the Omega Elias Solin are joined under law. So record it. The gallery erupted a Euro, not in scandal this time, but in the chaotic, layered sound of a world rearranging itself. Kale rose. He did not kiss me a Euro, not there, not yet. He simply stood beside me, our hands linked, Torin warm between us, and faced the council with the steady calm of a man who had finally put his spine where his heart was. As we left the hall, I caught the eye of my father in the gallery. His face was unreadable. I did not look away first. Outside, the capital's autumn sun was thin and gold. Kale's carriage waited. He helped me in, settled Torin in my arms, and then hesitated on the step. Where to, he asked. The Vera estate? Or a Euro? The shop, I said. First, I need to tell Mara, and collect my books. And a Euro, I met his eyes. And then, if you still want it, home. Whatever that looks like. As long as it has a green door. I've been dreaming of a green door for months. Kale went very still. A cabin. In the forest east of the march. I bought it after the council. After I started looking for you. I painted the door green because Euro, he stopped. Smiled, small and wondering. Because I dreamed you would like it. The bond sang. I leaned across the space between us and kissed him Euro soft, deliberate, the first kiss I had chosen since the night of the solstice. He made a sound like a man breaking open. When we parted, Torin made a small, complaining noise, and we both laughed, startled and real. Home, then, I said. Home, Kale agreed. The carriage rolled forward. Behind us, the council hall diminished. Ahead, the road opened toward a forest and a cabin and a life that would not be simply Ro. Kale's house still had enemies. My father still had pride. The world still had Relacero, but it would be ours. I rested my head on Kale's shoulder and felt his arm come around me. Careful of Torin. Careful of me. careful in the way of a man who had learned that some things were too precious to grip too hard. "I love you," he said into my hair. I should have said it in the garden. I should have said it every day since. "I love you, Elias. Both of you." "I know," I said. And then, because honesty was the only currency we had left that mattered, "I love you too. Even when I hated you. Especially then. Don't make me regret it again." "Never," Cale vowed. "Not for the rest of my life. Not for any life after." I believed him. Not because he was an alpha, or an heir, or a man who had knelt on black marble. Because the bond between us no longer screamed. It sang. And for the first time since the night that bound us, I sang back. 1 year later, the cabin in the forest east of the march had a garden. I had planted it myself a euro, herbs near the kitchen window, moonflowers along the path, a small bed of the blue mountain asters that grew wild near my childhood home. Torin, now a sturdy 1-year-old with his father's eyes and my stubborn mouth, liked to pull the asters up by the roots and present them to Cale as gifts. Cale accepted every ruined flower as if it were a crown. House Vera still claimed us. Cale still rode to the march when duty required. But the capital of his life had shifted from the white stone halls of power to a cabin with a green door and an Omega who sewed book bindings in the afternoons, and an heir who laughed like sunlight on water. We had visitors. Mara came with jars of preserves and unsolicited advice. The midwife came to check on the second child I was already carrying euro, another secret that was not a secret, another life the bond had spun between us in the quiet hours when the world forgot to watch. Even my father came once, stiff and awkward, and held Torin for exactly 3 minutes before clearing his throat and saying, "He has your mother's hands," which was as close to an apology as the man was capable of giving. I took it. Some nights, Cale still woke from dreams of the council floor, of the word no leaving his mouth, of the months he had spent searching the capital's underbelly with a desperation that had nearly broken him. On those nights, I pulled him close and pressed his hand to my Belluro, to Torin, to the new life, to the proof that we had survived Himuro, and said the only words that ever settled him. "You're here. We're here." The bond held. Sleep. And he did. On a morning in late spring, I stood in the garden with Torin on my hip and watched Cale chop wood at the edge of the trees. Sweat darkened his shirt. His scent rolled across the clearing, smoke and pine and home, and the bond between us purred like a contented cat. "Papa," Torin said, pointing. "Duh?" "Yes," I told him. "That's your duh." He makes mistakes. He also chops excellent wood and tells terrible jokes and loves us more than he loves his own pride. Which, for an alpha of the Eastern March, is saying something. Torin did not understand. He waved a fistful of ruined asters anyway. Cale looked up, saw us. Smilady Euro, the real smile. The one that still undid me. The one that belonged to the man in the garden and the man in the rain and the man who had knelt on black marble and meant every word. He set down the axe and walked toward us. And I thought, this is what the stories meant. Not the perfect bond. Not the alpha who never failed. The one who failed and came back. The one who learned. The one who chose, every day after the choosing should have been easy, to stay. He kissed my forehead, took Torin, rested a hand on the curve of my second pregnancy with a reverence that never got old. "Council session next month," he said. I told them I would attend by letter. "They can have my written vote. They cannot have my spring." "Scandalous," I said. The alpha of Vera, choosing his omega over politics. The alpha of Vera, Cale corrected softly, choosing his life. I leaned into him. The green door stood open behind us. Inside, the kettle would be singing soon. The books I had bound waited on the shelf. The Futuri Euro messy, imperfect, our Euro waited with them. I rejected our bond in front of the council, Cale said, as he sometimes did, testing the old wound to make sure it had scarred clean. "I didn't know you were carrying my heir. And now?" I asked as I always did. He looked at Torin, at me, at the garden and the trees and the life we had built from the wreckage of his cowardice and my flight. "Now I know," he said, "and I will never stop knowing. And I will never stop choosing you." The bond sang. I sang back. And somewhere in the forest east of the march, in a cabin with a green door, an omega who had once been forgettable and an alpha who had once been a fool held their son between them and let the morning be enough. It always would be.